Just chase. Dr. Joe Griffin. Yeah. I introduce you to Dr. Joe Griffin, a speaker, consultant, and author's intention is teaching. Their talk is to broaden their vision, the things they weren't taught when they brought up as children. I introduce you to Dr. Joe Griffin. It's Dr. Joe Griffin. I introduce you to Dr. Joe Griffin, a speaker, consultant, and author's intention is teaching. Their talk is to broaden their vision, the things they weren't taught when they brought up as children. Reach for the top, regardless of situations, predicaments, or your conditions. He's making history, all of the districts, increasing retention from teachers, 50 to 80%. That ain't all that you hear me. He is the mentor. He paved the way with his DIP methodology, really. Dream, be persistent, face fears, seek change, go out and go get it. This what you learning with Dr. Joe Griffin. With Dr. Joe Griffin, yeah. He says recognize trauma, push past the pain. If you got a problem, go look at it. Work your perspective and look at it change. Find a goal, set it in critical thing. Manage time, self-awareness. These are the few of the things he's trying to get you to do every day. Do every day. Led 5 schools to increase test scores with his teacher principal collaboration. Things he give to you will have you take your drive to the next level. But first, you need to get some fuel at gas station. Supporting education leaders, creating a culture for kids that'll last for ages. Lack of access to quality professional development, that's outrageous. Got his doctorate in education. Leadership, research, make changes. Need to put the kids first and raise them. Need to teach them they worth, stop playing. Later on, they gon' run this nation. Dr. Joe with his dissertation. Taught to those who would fix, make changes. I introduce you to Dr. Joe Griffin, a speaker, consultant, and author's intentions is teaching. Their talk is to broaden their vision, the things they weren't taught when they brought up as children. Reach for the top, regardless of situations, predicaments, or your conditions. He's making history, all of the districts, increasing retention from teachers, 50 to 80%. They ain't all that you hear me. He is the mentor. He paved the way with his DIP methodology, really. Dream, be persistent, face fears, seek change, go out and go get it. This what you learning with Dr. Joe Griffin. With Dr. Joe Griffin.
Great day, leaders. Welcome to week 25 of the Speaking Life into You Leadership live stream. I am your host, Dr. Joe Griffin, where we talk leadership dynamics, personal and professional growth, educational trends, and we provide solutions to help you with school improvement to create a culture of collaboration. Let's go! Yes, indeed. As we open up, you all, as always, definitely want to get the roll call going. I definitely want to know where you're streaming in from. Put it in the chat. We definitely want to know where you're streaming in from. That's whether you're live or whether you're catching the recording. It doesn't matter. We definitely want to have your input. We want to have your participation today. We got a wonderful lineup. First off, just like last week, we want to give a moment of silence for those that are enduring this California wildfire episode. It's something tragic. Again, I am in Los Angeles, and around this 20 to 25 mile radius, it's no words to explain what's been going on. I'm sure you've seen it all over the news, and it just continues. So we hope that they can go ahead and make sure that everything is well. People have lost enough. People have suffered enough. And we definitely want to get past yet another tragedy. So a moment of silence, just a few seconds of silence for those that are experiencing or who have people who are experiencing the California wildfires and its impact. Yes. Continue prayers. As we get ready to go into our show tonight, you all, I want to, as always, I like to tie what we do in real life also to what we do as educators. And I like to speak to you today from a topic of remaining resilient through it all. And I talk about it in my dip approach for student and adult success as well, especially during the push past pain pillar, but remain resilient through it all. And it's a couple of layers to it when we start thinking about what that actually means, remaining resilient through it all, because we're going to encounter things in our lives, personal, professionally, that impact us tremendously, that can sometimes put us down, that might throw us into a depression, might not give us the next thought or the next vision of where we need to go. And we can't allow that to happen. We got to remain resilient through it all. Being resilient through it all, it means that you have to allow things that happen to us to push us into empowerment, fuel empowerment. We have to allow things that happen to us to allow us to strengthen capacity. And we have to allow those things that happen to us to drive improvement. When you talk about fueling empowerment and remaining resilient, there's a lot of things that come to your mind, a lot of things that come to my mind, because we have to allow those things that happen to us to give us the power, the drive, the commitment to keep going no matter what, because we can't give up on ourselves. I always tell you to affirm your leadership, affirm the things that you do as an educator, affirm those positive things that you're putting out into the atmosphere. Allow your resilience to be fueled through empowerment. Allow resilience to strengthen your capacity, stretch you. Things that happen to us, whether it's in our work, whether it's in our personal lives, they stretch us. They stretch us to make us better. I lost a student this past week. Some of you that follow me on social media might have seen a post. Pretty emotional as far as social media for me, as far as expressing this, as far as that young man. But we got to know that those types of encounters stretch us. They stretch our capacity. That young man made me better. Yeah, he was a tough cookie. Yeah, he was hard-headed, but he had a heart of gold. He was smart. He was brilliant. And we mentally challenged one another. I'm going to say that again. He was a student. I was the principal, but we mentally challenged one another. He challenged me to be a better leader. I had to come up with different strategies in order to reach him. Yeah, it took 3-4 years, but by the time he was 12th grade, we were tight. We were tight. He was starting to be a leader in the school. You know, I would have liked that to transfer more and more into other parts of his life and the things that happened, but he had become better, and so had I. So we have to be fueled by things that happen, our relationships as well. We have to allow them to strengthen our leadership capacity, because it stretches us and it allows us to be able to drive improvement. If you don't fail at something, if you don't have to bounce back at something, if you don't have to try something in a different way, how are you going to know what it took to get there? So we got to remain resilient through it all. That's personally, that's professional, you all. I know I'm talking to somebody today, but I hope that you're here. Again, want to hear you in the chat. Let us know where you're streaming in from. I see we got a number of people that's already in, so let us know where you're streaming in from. Got to get that crowd engagement. Also, like, comment, subscribe, share. Okay, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. We've got a great one today. And we're about to get ready to bring out our guest here. And I'm going to bring him up, and then I'm going to read his bio. It's very impressive bio. And we're going to have a great conversation today, you all, centered around improving instruction, of course, but through the lens of student empowerment and leadership. Let me get this other banner off of here, you all, so that we can have some space on the screen. Bringing up Dr. John Plump, and then I'm going to read his bio. Dr. Plump, it's definitely great to have you. I'm going to read your bio, and then we're going to get into the conversation. Thank you for joining. Dr. John A.E. Plump. He's a native of Birmingham, Alabama, and a 1985 graduate of A.H. Parker High School, where he was a 3-year letterman in varsity football, baseball, and a 4-year member of the concert choir. After graduation, John matriculated to Alcorn State University to earn a full music scholarship to study voice with a concentration in classical music and contemporary opera. In 1992, he left Alcorn with the host of academic credentials. He received his Bachelor of Arts in Social Science Education and a Master of Science in Secondary Education. In 2014, Dr. Plump received his doctorate in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University. For the last 33 years, Dr. Plump has worked as a teacher, school administrator in Birmingham City Schools. Dr. Plump has served as a social studies teacher, where he taught American history, American government, and psychology. And his past administrative positions include being an assistant principal, an alternative school principal, and a principal at many schools within the district. Currently, he serves as the administrative law judge for Birmingham City School. That's a powerful position, where he facilitates disciplinary hearings for at-risk students and their families. Got a few interesting facts about Dr. Plump, and we're going to dive in after that. He's a third-generation educator. Great-grandfather and mother also served as educators. Fourth-generation doctor of education. Okay. Third-generation member of Kappa Alpha Psi. His grandfather and father were members. He's the author of 6 books on education that are currently being used as textual study for teachers and students across multiple districts in the United States. And he's facilitated professional development symposiums in Atlantic Public Schools, Jackson, Mississippi, Destin, Florida, Huntsville, Montgomery, Tuscaloosa, and Mobile, Alabama, as well as Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In his leisure time, Dr. Plump loves listening to heavy metal, reggae, and classical music, and debating topics related to sports, education, history, and politics. He's the CEO of Plump Educational Consulting Services and holds membership in the Alabama High School Athletic Association, the National Alliance of Black School Educators, and the National Council for Educating Black Children, Council for Leaders in Alabama Schools. Dr. Plump is a member of Hopewell Baptist Church, and he's married to the former Sonia Lee Bell. They produced 2 lovely daughters, Jana, I hope I'm saying that right, Doc, a graduate of Tennessee State, and Jalen, a senior at Alabama State. His mantra is simple. Whatever you decide to do in life, do it to the magnitude that no man dead, no man living, and no man yet to be born could ever do it in the better. Welcome, Dr. Plump. How are you this evening?
Dr. Griffin, I'm doing well, my brother. Thank you so much for that well-articulated introduction. So glad to be here with you, here with Joe Griffin Enterprises. I love your hip-hop introduction. So on point and so appropriate for the day, the current day that we reside in public education, or just in education in general. So I'm just glad to be here, and I just thank you for the caveat that you've laid out thus far, and I look forward to a very interesting commentary and extended conversation regarding the noble field that we both love, education.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you. I'm glad to have you, Dr. Plump. It's indeed a pleasure. And you have a number of credentials that I just read off, and that is a testament to yourself and what you've been able to accomplish. So definitely we can't raise up our high achievers enough. So thank you for leading that and being in the forefront of that, being an example for many educators to come. And I'm so excited also about this conversation that we're about to have on empowering students, leadership, and improving instructional intelligence. So empowering students is not just about giving them a voice, so to speak, but it's also about giving them skills, confidence, and the mindset so that they can then take charge of their own learning. And I know that you are an empowerment specialist, Dr. Plump. What do you feel like some of the key components of true student empowerment?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for acknowledging the most important component in education, which is students. So when we start having a conversation about how to improve education, we have to start there. And we have to start talking about the fact that there are very significant components to how we empower young people. And I like to start off with motivation. And I like to start off with motivation because we want to be able to share with those that are listening that intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are very key when we're trying to inspire students to be great. And once we take care of the motivational part, then that should lead students to information. And when we talk about information, we're talking about having a love for words, having a love for information, knowledge, wisdom, concepts, notions, things that are going to push them forward academically and scholastically. And then once we take care of motivation and information, then that's going to lead kids to a transformation. And when we talk about a transformation, we're talking about a shift and a change in how they think, how they go about their educational business, how they go about shifting the way in which they process education and process the knowledge that is before them, because we have to really arrive at the realization that in 2025, students have much more content that they have to be responsible for than maybe we did during our time in education or our time in school. And then lastly, we got to push them to salvation, not salvation in the religious sense, but salvation in the sense of being a winner and a champion in the classroom, a winner and a champion in their goals and aspirations, and as they move forward in education. I also want to say, when we're talking about educating students in 2025, we got to utilize that hip hop concept. And when we think about hip hop, I often like to help students to understand that let's take hip hop and make it an acronym. And let's say that hip hop really stands for high intellectual performance and high operating performance. And we're going to teach and learn from that perspective. And I feel as though students can be empowered when they can combine all of those scholastic ingredients: motivation, information, transformation that leads to salvation. And through empowerment, that begins to be the starting point and igniting their zeal to be successful academically. So I thank you so much for that question, because it starts with student empowerment.
I love it. I love it. That's powerful answer as well. And you made me think about when you brought up motivation as being a key factor. I know that with that, it's three things that help motivate people. You got fear, incentive, and growth motivation. And fear, naturally, we don't want to motivate people through fear. Of course, that has been a tactic, of the past or what have you, but during the times now of social emotional intelligence and social emotional learning, we just can't operate at that type of level. But incentive, everyone, tends to do better or work even harder or strategize even better to get toward their goals when they know that something is on the other side of that motivation. But you also mentioned growth motivation, the ability to grow through those things that you provide, and allowing students the opportunity to see what they can be, to know that they have something that they need to be looking forward to, and you putting them in a position where they can actually put those things into play. Now you're talking about leading them toward growth motivation. So I really, really appreciate your emphasis on motivation and and that analogy for empowering them. What would you say that the role of educators and school leaders play in fostering that sense of student empowerment? What role do leaders play in ensuring that students get the opportunity to show that empowerment?
Well, I'm glad, or I really find it interesting that you mentioned that as your next question, because we know when students arrive to school, they expect the teacher to inspire them. They expect the teacher to empower them and approach them with a level of conviction that can get them fired up for the teaching and learning process. So let's just basically say or come to an agreement that teachers construct the whole process. They construct the process emotionally, psychologically, academically, and even from a discipline perspective. Because we have to recognize that the school is hallowed ground. The school is a hallowed institution. And because the school is a hallowed institution, the teacher has to take the component of motivating and inspiring students very seriously. When teachers start their lessons off, you have to have something empowering that you offer your students so your kids get excited about the instructional process and the learning process. You have to speak greatness into the life of teachers. During my time span as a teacher, I often would start my classes with poems. I would start my classes with quote analysis. I would start my classes off with songs, things that I knew energized students, things that I knew got students excited about the pedagogical process. And this is so very important because most institutions of higher learning do not teach teachers how to motivate and inspire. They don't teach teachers how to connect the systems of motivation to young people. So that means a lot of times students get lost in the classroom experience. I've often said that schools are more than intellectual institutions, they're social institutions as well. And because they're social institutions, there needs to be some parallels drawn in the area where students can get that extrinsic motivation from that external source. And that teacher is the individual that is really the nucleus and the centerpiece of that whole process. And I tell you this from experience being a teacher and from experience actually observing other teachers, those teachers that have the ability to teach with conviction, with energy, with empowerment, they make the difference in the lives of students when they come into that classroom. So we just have to acknowledge the fact that student empowerment is central to a teacher's program and agenda when they're actually teaching students. So very vital to the survival of students in 2025.
That's crucial. That's crucial. Speaking life into the student. That's why I named this show Speaking Life into You Leadership Live Stream, because in order for our leaders and educators to be able to speak life into our students, we have to constantly pump life into them. We have to constantly affirm what they do and let them know that what you do matters, that students are counting on you. Parents are counting on you. Teachers are counting on you. So definitely appreciate that as well. And I want to take that a step further as far as the student empowerment piece that you just talked about. Once you are able to involve students and able to have them empowered in a space where they feel like they can have the confidence that they need to do those things, how do you then incorporate, say, student choice and leadership opportunities? How do you put them out front where they can actually participate and do the job as leaders?
Well, we do know that leadership without followership is a sinking ship. And we recognize that students have to showcase that they can follow the leader. But once they have perfected that process, then it's time to put them in a unique position to actually be a leader. I often say that the classroom is the perfect environment to create leadership capabilities for young people, because you can always put them in positions where they can be leaders in cooperative learning stations. They can, I call it junior facilitatorship. That's where the expert student or the student that has the ability to lead other students, has the ability to take command of the course content and then carry that course content to the group for mastery purposes. That's very important, because we do know that students do learn from students. Yes. And because students do learn from students, that is an exemplar of leadership. Also, a technique that I've always been a proponent for is when teachers are providing students opportunities to recite answers to questions, to read notes from previous lessons, to assess concepts and content in the classroom. Have the student elevate, have the student stand. And when that student stands and begins to deliver those ideas and concepts from their portfolio, it's going to cause all of the attention to be centered on that student. And when all of the attention is being centered on that student gets an opportunity to share the information. And then the rest of the class has the opportunity to zoom in on what that student is talking about and make sure that they digest that information. So students have to be given those opportunities at the classroom level to showcase their brilliance scholastically. Also, providing forums at the school level to speak on assemblies, to discuss different civic community issues. Those things are very important. Even though we're in 2025, student government association processes are still very important, where students get an opportunity to address concerns that are happening concerning students at the school level. And that has to be done not just at the secondary level, but also at the elementary school level. As a matter of fact, it starts at the elementary school level. You go in a typical elementary school level, kids need to understand parliamentary procedure. Yeah. Those things and those strategies are very, very significant to giving kids that kind of academic exposure, or leadership exposure, should I say, in order for them to be able to value the school experience. So I'm glad that you spoke about leadership in the midst of student achievement. So very important.
Oh, yeah. And I thank you for giving those key strategies. And I hope the viewers are listening. I'm going to pull out some of them that you just said. You said put them in a junior facilitator role, leader of your station. And y'all know I'm a big proponent of stations, reciprocal teaching, all other cooperative learning concepts as well. So put them in a junior facilitator role. That is huge. Also talked about putting them in a presenter's role. So allowing them to be able to present the information back to those other students. He also mentioned forums. Again, all this, these are ways to empower students and allow their voices to be heard. And I'm going to give a couple extra on top of those. Allowing them to put the voice into the school improvement plan. Now, think about that. From the beginning, we've already included these voices in the planning aspect of it. Those kids are going to have powerful words to say to those other students. We talk about mentoring programs as well. So all of those are great things that you could do. That's about 5 or 6 different solutions for our viewers that are watching. We have a number of viewers that watch Dr. Plump, which I'm very, very happy about. And one thing that I try to do, I try to ensure that we provide solutions each and every week that they can go back and literally implement. So thank you for those answers. And just to get the crowd engaged some more right here, you all, what are some things that you're doing in your schools to empower students? What are you doing? What are you doing to empower students in your school? Put it in the chat. Let's hear about it. Lady Crystal Reddick from LA chime in. We definitely appreciate you being in the room. Thank you so much. What are some things that you're doing in your schools to empower students, you all? This is powerful, okay? This is powerful. Dr. Plump also mentioned student government associations. Powerful. That it's not gone, you all. We still need to have those SGAs, those student leadership councils. So important. All right. So with that being said as well, Dr. Plump, want to kind of keep going, move a little bit to a next piece. And we're talking about refining instructional practices basically to illustrate instructional intelligence. And we know instructional intelligence is something that you often have to learn and develop. So tell us what your definition of instructional intelligence is and what that looks like.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that teaching is an art and a science. And that's so very important, because if we approach instruction strictly from a scientific perspective, that means we forget about the artness and the brilliance of the delivery of quality concepts. So I want to say that teaching is an art and a science. But to answer your question more specifically, instructional intelligence is really the pedagogical expertise of a teacher that really revolves around research and experienced reality. And that's so very significant, because when we're talking about delivering concepts, you got to make sure that you embrace what the forefathers, you have to embrace what the experts have had to say about how we teach young people, but you can't forget about experienced reality. You can't forget about those strategies and those techniques and those methods that you incorporated off the cuff, or you incorporated based upon your own assessment of your students, and you utilized it and you got results. You utilized and you saw students excited about the instructional process. You took a chance and said that this type of strategy is very important to keep kids engaged, to make them actual participants in the lesson. And see, that leads me to an equation that I talk about a lot in educational settings. I believe that if learning is going to take place, quality instruction has to take place. It has to preface it. And when we talk about learning, we have to use it in the form of an equation. And the equation is E3 plus A plus R equals learning. And the 3 E's stand for explanation, exploration, engagement. Then you add application, and then you add reflectivity, and that is equivalent to learning. And the reason why we use the 3 E's, because regardless to how technological we become in the educational community, nothing replaces the ability to articulate what you are expecting students to learn. Yeah. 2, you have to open up the windows of learning and create a caveat for a multiplicity of ideas in order to be able to get the points across. And then, of course, when you engage students, you make them actual participants in the lesson. Then you apply all of those together, and then you give students an opportunity to think about and process that information, and that is equivalent to learning. And in a nutshell, think about it from the 4 C's perspective. Climate plus culture plus curriculum is equivalent or equals competence. So it's all about learning. You just got to make sure that the teaching component is being incorporated through a variety of areas. So that's the reason why I coined that phrase instructional intelligence, because the teacher has to be very brilliant about how they plan their lessons, how they deliver instruction, how they adjust the teaching and learning process as it actually goes about itself. how they incorporate different activities and exercises to bring learning into fruition. And then, of course, how they actually assess and evaluate the whole process. But the bottom line is making sure that teachers are accountable to instruction.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And what I heard from you, what I heard you say was that instructional intelligence is about making strategic decisions that impact the learning day to day. And that's whether it's in a planning phase, meaning prior to, that's whether it's during, in a formative assessment phase, or after, meaning after you've done your summative assessments and all that, you still have to come back as an instructor, as an educator, make those strategic and informed decisions that show that you're doing what's best for kids, as well as that you're competent enough to ensure that students are learning. Because like you said, there's no learning without teaching. There's no good learning or high impact learning, especially without high impact teaching. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention something that I think needs to promote clarity regarding this process. Formative assessment and checks for understanding are not only important for the teacher, but they're also important for the student, because that goes back to motivation. Do you realize when students know that on a daily basis, you're going to check to see if they actually realized that they learned the material, that they actually reached a high level of competence? That inspires kids to continue to study. That inspires kids to actually engage themselves in independent and autonomous study. Those things are vital in this day and time, because we got to help students realize that we are connecting learning now to learning tomorrow. And that's something that we can't hesitate to do. We have to immediately integrate that mindset, or what I call that brain set, into today's academic world. And it's just so very important when we're trying to engage students the right way and circulate it around all of the academic concepts that they are accountable for.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Really, really good stuff. And with that being said, as far as instructional intelligence and making those crucial decisions that keep the learning moving forward, that keep students on the path toward increasing their achievement, et cetera, what are some things that teachers or educators might not see as far as being able to implement instructional intelligence into their services for students? What are some things that could be blind or that could catch someone off guard that they need to kind of be aware of so that they can have instructional intelligence?
Yeah. Well, I think number one is reading deficiencies. Teachers and parents have to recognize reading deficiencies early enough so the phonetic awareness and many of the other academic pillars that teachers use early on to teach reading, to promote fluency, to promote comprehension, that has to be detected early so students will have the confidence to move forward academically. I worked most of my years at the secondary level, not only as an administrator, but also as a teacher. And of course, a student's supposed to know how to read before they reach 7th grade level. And I taught history, social studies, government, psychology, courses of that nature. So of course, unfortunately, I had some students that had reading difficulties. So I always like to just go back and say, well, what happened at the early stages when students were exposed to those academic concepts? What occurred in the early or the infancy of a child's education that prevented that child from the hiccups of learning how to read? So it's just so very important that reading deficiencies are detected early enough. So those can be blind spots. Also, parental neglect. We've got to challenge parents to help them to understand that when they start their children in preschool, when they start their children in the earliest points of learning, that they are aware of what students are responsible for, and that the learning at home is reflective of the learning program at school, because parents and students have to work together. That's the reason why I often tell parents that the word parents is an acronym, and the word parents stands for people accumulating resilient experiences necessary to succeed children. I want to read that again now. I want to recite that and articulate that again, because parents have to understand their role when it comes to achievement and success of young people. People accumulating resilient experiences necessary to succeed children. Parents are the first teachers in a child's life, and we can't ignore that blind spot. And we have to make parents accountable, not in a forceful way. We want to be diplomatic, but we want to share with them early enough what the expectation is. Of course, student apathy, we got to build students up. We can't let students just think that they're not going to be successful, think that they're going to fail. We want to build them up and make them successful, because if you let too much apathy permeate in the lives of children, it's very difficult to be able to defeat that. So I think that those are some of the blinding spots in education. Then, of course, curriculum concepts are very important, because teachers got to be a little bit more vigilant about learning all of the academic ideas that they need in order to be able to teach this generation of young people.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely want to highlight the reading deficiencies. Not only just because I'm an English major, but because I know that that's that connecting piece to all other phases of learning, all other subjects. If we can ensure that we catch students early enough to ensure that we keep them on grade level with their reading, especially up to about the 8th and especially even the 10th grade, they're prepared for life at that point, because those standardized tests, subject area, as well as your college performance tests, all of them are about reading comprehension. Once you crack the code, once we get our students to crack their reading comprehension code, the rest is history, as they say. So on that beat, I want to get some activity from the crowd. What are some of the great instructional strategies that you're using in your schools right now? And I want to highlight Petunia. Petunia's coming. Yes, preach. The single greatest determinant in learning is not socioeconomic factors. The greatest determinant in learning is the instruction. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that, Miss Petunia. Petunia, appreciate your participation right there. But what are some instructional strategies that you're using in your schools, you all? Want to get a little crowd engagement? Definitely like, comment, subscribe, share. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Now, Dr. Plump, we're going to move into our next phase of the conversation. And here we're talking how leadership impacts all of the things that we've been discussing: student empowerment, instruction, etc. And we know that leaders play the biggest role, well, a big role in shaping the school community. What are some of the traits that you feel like educational leaders need to have in order to move schools?
Well, we do recognize that everything starts with the individual that's sitting in the Oval Office. And when you sit in the Oval Office, you've got to make sure that you stand tall and you become an advocate for scholastics. I just believe that being a proponent for the reason why all of us are in the school, to promote the systems of teaching and learning. So I often like to share that if I'm an advocate for scholastics, what does that sound like? What does that look like? Being an advocate for scholastics, that means that you lead with principle. You lead with an idea and a plan for how you want to promote academic success, scholarly achievement in your building. And everybody in the building can feel the leadership. Everybody in the building can attach to the instructional leadership of that individual in the Oval Office. So that means that it's very imperative that from the onset that the school leader leads professional development. The school leader leads PLCs, professional learning communities. The school leader leads faculty meetings and has a well-planned program in order to be able to promote success in the school. 2, the leader has to be accessible to the stakeholders. And see, that's very important, because when you're talking about stakeholders, you're not just talking about teachers. You're talking about sanitation engineers, the janitor. You're talking about paraprofessionals, behavioral aides. You're talking about those that work in the school's cafeteria, the school nutrition department. You're talking about parents, community, all of those stakeholders. You have to effectively communicate with them and be accessible to them. There's nothing worse in an institution of learning when the school leader is absentee, when the school leader takes a negative stance when it is concerning being a vital component in the school, and also being transparent and being honest. That's just so very important. That character piece is so very important when we're talking about leadership and making sure that you model expectations. I've often said that being a servant leader is not just cliche-ish. It's actually a very important component to how you lead your building, because you're not there just because you're the principal. You're there because you want to serve those that not only work under you, but work with you, that work collaboratively with you. And the last thing I want to say about being a good leader, you have to be a connoisseur of learning. You have to be a connoisseur of listening, should I say. And I say being a connoisseur of listening because oftentimes the principal should be aware of everything that's happening in the school. But when you're having summits and meetings with those that are part of your leadership team or those that work with you, you want to make sure you do more listening than talking first. And I think that when you incorporate all of those leadership techniques and strategies, you're on your way toward being a successful leader.
Definitely. And with that being said, I know that institutional improvement doesn't happen without the leader, just like instructional improvement doesn't happen without the instructional leader. So it's about creating those different systems that will allow you to have some lasting success, that allow you to put people in place, allow you to put systems in place that can continue, that you can grow from, that you can recycle, that you can have teammates learn from, and just make sure that you're keeping it moving forward at all times. What?
Right. And I'm glad that you said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I didn't mean to intervene, but I wanted to say that the leaders that I worked for, the best ones were the ones who delegated with supervision. I don't mean micromanaging, but I mean they delegated, but they also had provided opportunities for those that they delegated certain work to come back and discuss the profile, discuss the agenda, and discuss how they went about having success with what they were delegated to actually complete and do. And see, that's very important because that's how you empower your people. That's how you build your people up and construct a leadership team that can actually create the kind of success that you know you want to actually see in your building.
Yeah. And that actually goes right into the next question, so I won't prolong it. What are the steps that schools and leaders can take to provide meaningful institutional improvement? I know you just mentioned one thing that they can do is to allow meaningful delegation, but what are some things that they can do to add to that institutional improvement?
I think first of all is to create a school plan that's clear and concise, to make sure that whatever that plan is, it has a mission and a vision, and it has a mission and a vision that is achievable.
Yeah.
And make sure that
SMART goals.
Yes, sir. SMART goals, exactly. Create intelligent objectives within your institution that coincide with instructional excellence, that coincides with professional development, and that actually lends itself to student success. Because at the end of the day, it's all about how does the decision-making process at the leadership level, how does the decision-making process at the unified level carry weight in the school so you can experience the kind of championship attitude that you want to promote, in your building. And you want that to be detected not only by those that are a part of the team, you want that to be detected from those that operate from the external arena, at the central office, at the community level. All of those things are very important when you're trying to actually convey a vision in your school that says that the plan is workable, the plan is achievable, and the plan is a blueprint for systemic success. And I just believe that that is a major part of how we empower staff and how we promote the kind of intellectual attitude that we want to see in a school building at the elementary level, at the middle school level, at the junior high level, and of course at the high school level.
Definitely that empowerment talk. That's my language. That's my language. We have to be secure in our leadership and allow people to do what they're designed to do. We have to let our people work. We got to put them in
I
position.
want to say one thing, not to intervene, Dr. Griffin, but I wanted to say something about empowerment. I recall during my time as a principal, when I would lead PLCs, I would always ask those on my leadership team, do you feel convicted to do this work? Do you feel empowered to do this work to the point where those that you work with feel empowered when you are delivering the concepts and delivering the ideas? Because the ideology has to be so powerful and so impacting that it creates the kind of awareness where people are just really excited and enthusiastic and fired up about the learning process. We have to make sure that we affect the masses to the point, and when I say the masses, I'm talking about your student community. You got to affect them to the point where they really see value in daily lessons. I call it 181 days of excellence.
Definitely got to have a movement, so to speak. And
yes,
one of the things that I prided myself on as a leader was setting up the educational environment, not only to be better, but to keep going forward even after I was gone. And I've been blessed to have 5 turnarounds as the principal, but I'm also happy to say that in each one of those school improvement situations, after I was gone, it was in a better place where they were able to still keep going up. So that lets me know that the systems that we put in place, they weren't just short-term fixes. Of course, we got the immediate short-term academic success because we always improve at great lengths, but they were also transformational because they were able to be implemented for the long term so that everyone could continue to improve. With that being said, I know one of the things that I did was focus on culture, individual relationships, making that connection individually to empower them so that we could ultimately collaborate and that everyone could stand on their own and do what they were supposed to do individually, which made the team strong all together. So with that thought being in mind, Dr. Plump, what are some ideas that can lead to long-term transformations? How do we ensure that these improvements aren't just trends, but they lead to long-term transformations?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer that question in a very simple way. And I believe that if we just take the buzzwords in education, teaching and learning, scholars, motivation, activities, curriculum, parental involvement, research, reality, getting the kind of results that we want. We've just got to make sure that those buzzwords are a part of the conversation and the commentary in school summits and in school meetings, because we got to recognize that change is inevitable. So because change is inevitable, we've got to make sure that we can see the kind of transformation, not only instructionally, but we can see the kind of transformation as far as student processes are concerned, in the way in which students approach the learning process, the way that students actually see themselves within the pedagogical response. And what I mean by the pedagogical response, how students actually can reflect on what the teachers are actually teaching. Because if we're not seeing the kind of change that we want, then we're not actually getting the results that we actually need. So that means that if we are reaching a level of transformation academically, we got to make sure that students appreciate the fact that they are masters of content, that they prepare for their classes with a consistent mentality, that they spend time with the subject matter, and they become word wizards. 2, students got to be efficient with the work process. And when we say efficient, we're talking about to be meticulous, masters of being meticulous, I like to say, to complete their assignments in a timely manner, and to pay attention to detail. That's the reason why I use the word meticulous. And one of the most important components of reaching the kind of transformation that we want to see in schools is to make sure that our kids understand it's okay to be competitive. We've got to inspire students to arrive at the realization that they have to be competitive outside of entertainment and sports. They have to be competitive at the classroom level. They have to be competitive at the academic level, and they can challenge their peers in a respectable way. And then, of course, kids got to make good choices and good decisions when it comes to the scholastic process. That means that they have to be strategic thinkers. They have to think before they act. And lastly, they have to make those choices in a reasonable and rational kind of way, in what I call being a logical thinker. And I just believe that through all of those concepts, students can be successful, and they can reach the kind of transformation that we all want to see in all of our school buildings and in all of our school settings.
Definitely. Wow. I definitely appreciate those words today, Dr. Plump. And we know it's all about creating a community where everyone can thrive. Students, teachers, leaders, community people, all stakeholders. We want them to have a part in it, and we want everyone to flourish as the school flourishes. With that last thought, Dr. Plump, what would be some advice or final takeaways that you would like to leave with the audience? And also, in that breath, would also like you to definitely share out your information. There may be people who need your services.
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, I want to say to the academic community, make sure that motivation is a part of your delivery of academic ideology. Make sure that you teach with a vigor. Make sure that you don't take breaks with our young people. Help them to understand that there are 3 phases to the learning process, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And we've got to make sure that we profile quality instruction at those three pivotal moments in a classroom setting. And then I want us to share with young people that the metamorphosis of education is when the student believes that success is imminent. That word imminent means that education or success is not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen today. It's going to happen right now. So the metamorphosis of education is when the student believes that success is imminent. Then that student acts on that belief and replicates that belief in class, throughout school, and throughout all of their life's experiences. And I just believe through that process, students can be successful. And like I often say, students have to be mindful of their thoughts, because their thoughts become their words. Their words become their actions. Their actions become their habits. Their habits becomes their character, and their character becomes their destiny. And I would like to say also to those, if you want to communicate with me about doing any type of professional development, any type of motivational speaking, or if you want to use some of my books for your students, I have 6 books that are available. You can contact me via my website at www.johnplump.com. You can also email me at 100proverbs@gmail.com. That's 100 proverbs with an S. That's Proverbs from the Bible. That is 100proverbs@gmail.com. And of course, you can hit me up on social media via Facebook as well, John Plump. But just remember, you contact me through my website at www.johnplump.com, or you can hit me with an email at 100 proverbs with an S @gmail.com. And Dr. Griffin, I just want to say to you, thank you so much for what you do in the field of education, but also thank you so much for collaborating with other educators and leaders around the country, and for trying to not only be the difference, but make a difference in the field of education. I'm just so enamored to be in your midst. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, good brother, Dr. John Plump. Thank you for blessing the platform with your presence tonight. You gave out wonderful boatloads of information. Hopefully, our viewers were able to take notes and to participate as well. Got a couple of comments I definitely wanted to elevate before we get out. Petunia, so powerful. Thank you, Petunia. We definitely try our best. Instructional strategies, small, explicit group instructional scaffolds. I did a whole segment on scaffolding for instructional practices for teachers. So definitely a great point right there, Petunia. Differentiated instruction as well. So thank you for all of that participation today. And as we get prepared to close out, I want to make everyone aware of a couple of things that I have going on. First off, we know Black History Month is coming up. If you need a dynamic Black history speaker, I am the one for you. Definitely reach out to me via my website, via social media as well. I'm here every single week. As you all know, this was week 25, which I'm so proud of. That means we're halfway through the first year, which is really exciting. Now, this is something that I debated on showing, but I'm going to show it because somebody might need it. Somebody's going to need it because a couple people have signed up, but I've got a VIP special day experience for those who are interested. And of course, you can add teammates as well. It's guaranteed to increase self-awareness as well as your collaborative processes. Several reports going to come with, and then we'll have a 4-hour session. Me and you be able to coach. We'll come out with a tailored growth journey. And this is just the initial piece. This is just to get you going, so to speak. But it's going to give you that boost that you need going over these last few months of school. And I'm only doing this in January and February, this special VIP day experience. Only January and February. Definitely reach out if you are interested. You can get the QR code, or you can email me, and I will still definitely reach back out to you. Otherwise, want to remind you of our different works that we have. You all, we've got several different educational books that we want to continue to highlight as well. Educational leadership books, DIP approach for educated success manual. That's discipline culture plus instructional practice equals performance. Go out to New York City, February 12th through the 15th, where I'll be presenting for the Innovative School Summit. DIP approach for educators, empowering educational communities. Also, the next book, which is endorsed by Dr. Pedro Nogueira, as well as the GOAT, Principal Kafele. If you haven't picked up Empowering Educational Communities, a guide for teacher principal collaboration, make sure you do so. All right. And of course, our SEL pillar for our cultural components. We got the DIP approach for student and adult success, as well as the guidebook, 33 principal curriculum. And then you got the reading component to go with that. If you all want to reach out, need professional development, just like Dr. Plump said, we do the same things. We are in the empowerment business. So reach out if you will, and we'll make sure to get those things done. Whatever it is that you need with under the school improvement realm. And remember, school improvement is not just for failing schools. It's for any school that's in need to improve. Otherwise, I want to encourage you all to continue to be motivated, continue to inspire, and continue to be the best that you can be at whatever it is that you do. Dr. Joe signing off, always speaking and writing life into you. Be great.